on the guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. You can follow him Packers on SI and at Bill Huber NFL. Bill Huber on the line. Bill, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We're better now that we had lunch. Have you had lunch today, Bill?
I did. Yeah, my son's home sick. So I made grilled ham and cheese sandwich.
Oh,
that sounds good.
That's a money move right there. I assume school's canceled tomorrow already.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, minus 20 in Pulaski.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
A little chilly.
We got like -5 down here in the southeastern Wisconsin area, but you know, the whole state's shutting down tomorrow, so it should just be like, you know, light the fire and read a book by on the couch. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay away from those exploding trees.
Yeah.
I saw that. That's crazy.
That's not real.
That's
crazy.
AI.
Right,
That's
Bill,
fake.
that's not real, right?
I wouldn't think so, but I don't know.
That's fair.
I'm staying in the house. That's all I'm telling you.
If you're a lumberjack, stay safe out there this
That's
weekend.
right.
Yeah.
Do you think when Matt LaFleur is interviewing potential defensive coordinator candidates, he has to warn them about the exploding trees because it's so cold right now?
Yeah, it's probably something you shouldn't mention in an interview, I wouldn't think.
Fair.
Exactly. So let's dive in. I want to go that route first, Bill, before we go to potential defensive coordinators. The Matt LaFleur extension, you know, it getting done, kind of weird, you know, how the first reports we got were right at the end in overtime of like one of the, you know, best division games of the weekend with the Bills in Denver. And I know, and if I'm not mistaken, you wrote an article, you know, leading up to it about, you know, why it might be time to move on. Like, talk to us a little bit about like your thoughts on the extension for Matt LaFleur and, you know, the pros and cons of bringing him back.
Yeah, I guess I'd start off with I'm not surprised. I mean, you know how the organization is, Mace. They're very patient, and you know, for better or worse. So I'm not surprised that that's the direction they want. I did right after I thought about it long and hard on the drive back to Green Bay just to make sure I wasn't writing anything, you know, stupid that I'd regret. Then I think it was, if I was time to move on, you know, 5-game losing streak to end the season. Obviously, one of those games was irrelevant, but whatever. I mean, you blow sizable leads in a few of them. It just seems like maybe if it's this title town and the goal is to win a Super Bowl, maybe it's best to give a shot to somebody else. Obviously, Ed Policy disagreed with me. And more importantly, my thinking was what the players said in the locker room on Monday, with a lot of guys have LaFleur's back on Monday. And it wasn't just like I better say something nice about the guy because he might be my boss. It was like, it seemed really genuine. Like Micah Parsons just flat out blaming the players for losing leads and not straining hard enough. So I do think that the players genuinely wanted LaFleur back, and they got the wish.
Yeah, Bill, do you think, you know, I was in that locker room for a long time, and, you know, we've had Coach McCarthy on the show, and in my relationship with him and just kind of the type of coach he was. Do you think LaFleur is capable of allowing the locker room to lead the way? Because I think that is a big thing. I like what Micah said. I like what a lot of guys said, but there also has to be the coach position has to allow that locker room to lead. Do you think that's a shift that could get them to that next level? And is Coach LaFleur willing to take that take that shift here?
Yeah, LaFleur said, you know, several times that the best locker rooms are player-led locker rooms. That might be the verbatim way he puts it too. Yeah, I do think he's more than willing to let the players lead. And I mean, you would know, Mace. I mean, what do you want? I mean, whose words carry more weight? The coaches or the players? I'm curious. I'm interested in what you think. Who is it? If you're Joe player in the locker room, does what Micah Parsons had to say mean more to you than the head coach and the defensive coordinator?
No, I definitely think, like, especially a player like Micah Parsons, like, appreciate that he's coming out and just calling himself, well, I guess not calling himself out. He's calling other guys. Like, I will beat, like, I dare you to beat me to the ball. I dare you to compete with me because I'm going to go out there and play my hardest every single snap. And that's the kind of passion and drive that needs to, kind of infect that locker room, right? Because that was probably the glaring issue that we saw at times, especially down the stretch, where it was just like, where is this? Like, where is like the guys hunting, going and making plays? It just felt like they were just allowing things to happen to them.
No, I think it's exactly right, Mason. I think that's well said. To that quote that you mentioned here, I'm looking at it now. This is from Parsons, and I'll clean it up on the fly. I challenge the guys today: do more than what your job's required. If you're in shape, run more, do more. If we got to go play 80 snaps, we play 80 bleeping snaps. We shouldn't be tired of doing that. We got to strain. And he goes on to there. It was almost like he was pointing at number 52 when he said that. And I don't know for sure if that's true.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
It was about as strong as comments as I've ever heard a player say to us. I'm sure what goes on in the locker room is different, but to come out publicly and say that, telling the players, it's up to you guys. And it's true, Mace, like in all those leads that they blew, like nobody stepped to the forefront. And even when Parsons was there and they're winning games, it's like it was Parsons or bust. That's why he was the closer, because if he didn't get the fourth down sack, who was going to do it? Who's going to make that play at the end of the game to win the game? And it's like when he was there, everybody's waiting for Micah to make the play, and without Micah, nobody made it.
Exactly. We got Bill Huber joining the Mason Crosby show, talking all things Packers. I am curious, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Something that was glaring to me in this extension of LaFleur, and I haven't seen, has it been official with Goody and Russ Ball? Have they actually announced any of that yet? And
nothing's been announced yet. We're all waiting.
That Ed policy, through this, we all kind of actually thought maybe he was going to shift the structure, but it doesn't look like that's happening. So that was glaring to me, where it's like he kept himself kind of in that power position over all of the football operations. Did you find that to be kind of like a tell of what this contract extension might say if it doesn't improve and we don't see like a return on investment and success here in the next year or two?
Yeah, I found that interesting too from this perspective. If you're going to keep LaFleur, which they obviously did, can you change the structure? Or do you have to wait until you make a coaching change to do it? Because, as it is now, Goody and Matt are on the same line on the flow chart, or however you want to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really put Goody ahead of LaFleur, right? But bring back LaFleur? That would seem to be a little awkward. So maybe that's something they'll just have to wait for when they feel like a coaching change needs to be made. Maybe that structure changes at that point. But I think if you're going to keep LaFleur, you probably need to keep everything else as it is.
For sure. So now let's shift focus. The good on Jeff Hafley. Maximizing his 2 years there in Green Bay, getting a head coaching job down there in Miami. Who are your front runners for defensive coordinator candidates? Who would you like to see take over that job?
Yeah, there's no exploding trees in Miami, so Jeff's got that going.
There you go. He's safe.
Oh, we did this, Bill. Like, it actually might be worse to be for the cold to be the coach for the Miami Dolphins than it is the Packers with all the domes right now in the division. Like, you got to go to Buffalo twice, you got to go to New England twice, and you got to go to New York twice.
Yeah, good point. Jim Leonard intrigues me to the coordinator question here, though.
Yeah.
It was close back in 21, and that's when Jimmy was at Wisconsin, and his defenses were as good as any in college football. I mean, they were top 5 in points and third downs and sacks and takeaways, like all the important things. They were top 5 in the nation. It didn't happen. So then Leonard gets, obviously loses the Wisconsin job. I'm not sure why they didn't hire him. That was stupid, but that's neither here nor there. So now he has 2 years in Denver. Now he's not the coordinator, but he's got 2 years of big time NFL experience. So if Matt LaFleur was that interested in hiring a college guy in 21, why would he not be even more interested in hiring him now that he's got 2 years in the NFL under his belt? Or, he's been a Rex Ryan guy, from his days at the Ravens and Jets. So now he's got the Denver experience to lean on. He seems like from the outside, he would seem to be a more well-rounded candidate now than he was back in 21 when they wanted to hire him. So Jim Leonard intrigues me because he was a great player in high school. He was a great player in college. He was a great coach in college, and apparently he's a great coach in the NFL. So why not? To me, it seems like he's ready for the next step, and it seems like a perfect marriage to me.
Okay. So you're hanging your hat on the Jim Leonard train there. What do you think? We had some questions earlier, and we kind of went back and forth on it. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on a defensive coordinator. Obviously, I think Jim Leonard, he called the defense there in Wisconsin, so he's done it before, but not calling in the NFL. Do you think that's an issue with a defensive coordinator candidate coming into Green Bay and not having the experience of calling a defense in the NFL at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did it bother Jeff Halfley? I mean, you don't know. I mean, you don't know until you know. And yeah, that's the great mystery,
Let's be real, Bill. I called defense in 8th grade football, and pitched a shutout. So if I can do it, I think anybody can. I mean, come on. I was just a kicker. What do I know about the X's and O's on defense? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it'd be okay. To that point, though, I mean, then maybe look toward Jonathan Gannon, who failed as the head coach of the Cardinals. But when he was the Eagles defensive coordinator, they were one of the best units in the league and got to a Super Bowl. So, I mean, obviously he called plays there. So if that's an issue for you, maybe you go that route.
That's true. What about, have we heard anything about Sean McDermott? What's his story right now?
Yeah, I have not. I'm wondering if you're Sean McDermott, if you're holding out for the head coaching jobs first before you take a step back into the coordinator role. And, if you're Green Bay waiting on that, I mean, but then McDermott gets something else, you get in danger of waiting too long. So, yeah, that's an interesting thing. If you would be interested in taking a step back, or if you're McDermott, you just take a year off and regroup.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do it like Coach McCarthy did after he was gone from Green Bay, and you're getting paid anyways. Might as well just kind of spend some time with the family and reflect and get ready for that next gig. So, yeah, I like that as well. What do you think on this?
What do you think of Al Harris? Like in 1,000 years, in
Bill,
a million years, did you think of Al Harris as a defensive coordinator or an NFL coach in any way?
Bill, I was going to bring it up, but I'm glad you did. So I have been all week here pitching for Al Harris to be the defensive coordinator of this Green Bay Packers team. I think they need more kind of legacy Packer people in that building at times. Like you kind of, you hang your hat on the tradition of the organization, the history that's come before, but then you just don't always have a lot of people that have been there and done that, right? Always kind of in the space, speaking into the football side. So I think Al Harris, what he's done, what he did to Dallas, Tommy read off some stats, like what his corners and his the pass game defense was when he was at Dallas, what he did there in Chicago. And what was a big glaring issue on this team last year and kind of, here the last couple of years is that cornerback room, right? So you get a guy, they couldn't get turnovers this year. He had he didn't have a great secondary there in Chicago, and they took the ball away at a high rate. So I love the thought of Al Harris coming to Green Bay and being the DC there.
I never thought about that angle. I mean, I have all the numbers in my story. But I never thought about the legacy. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. Like, Pat, I mean, we all of us on the outside talk about the rivalries. Well, that doesn't mean anything to anybody up there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's a super point. But you're right. The interceptions are bananas. Like the Cowboys are number one in the NFL during his time there.
Yep.
And then he goes to the Bears and they're number one. That should probably tell you something about what he's doing as a coach to get those guys coached up. And I thought, is it Nashawn? Is it Nashawn Wright? Am I saying his first name right?
Nashawn Wright. Yep.
I just know how to spell it. So here's a guy he started like a few games in Dallas. He played one game for the Vikings. So he's been a total nobody in his career. He goes to Chicago with Al Harris in his first year, and he leads the league with 10 turnover plays, 5 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, or 2 forced fumbles and 3 recoveries for 10. That's Al Harris. That's the value of coaching. And I was reading in the story, I found some quotes from Al Harris about his coaching style is just giving players the confidence and the self-belief that they can do these things. And he's a big believer in that part of it. So yeah, I think Wright is kind of the poster child of what Al Harris can do to a defense.
I love that mentality, right? Like it takes fear out of the equation, and it takes like a fear of like not having success out of the equation, because it's like, if you play hard, you know what you're doing, and you go out there and you lay it on the line, you've already passed that threshold of success. Now it's like, what do you do to capitalize on that, right? Go get a turnover, go make a play. If you don't make that play, strap it back up and go out and do the next one, because you're not going to get down on yourself, and you're not going to, say woe is me, or like kind of go lick your wounds on the sidelines. Like, you're going to just keep playing ball. I love that. And then you bring in Nick Collins as the DB's coach. He's coaching down there at his alma mater. And I think some voices in that space to really drive like that kind of grit and that grind of like, what it takes to be a Green Bay Packer and be play on this defense and support that offense in every way, just could be a really galvanizing force for this team.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's just an unbelievably good point. Again, all of us talking, listening, we know what the Packers mean. But does Joe play? I mean, the Packers haven't won a Super Bowl since 2010. I think to a large extent, the Packers are just another team to a lot of these guys. And then to have the old head like Al, who spent 7 years here and was part of great teams, I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right. Well, I'm gonna keep pushing that narrative until something gets done. So
Mason,
we'll see what happens.
Mason, can you take out a billboard in Green Bay that says Al for DC? Like, do you think it's worth it? Like, next to LaFleur's house or something?
Just put it out.
I think he's going to be running for Congress at that
Yeah, exactly. He's going to DC.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we got to be specific.
All
Yeah,
right. Nicely said. You guys are smart. I'm dumb.
All right, fellas. Y'all got anything else for Bill?
No, I appreciate it, Bill.
Yeah, Bill. Awesome stuff. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay warm, and hope your son feels better.
Yeah, me too. All right, take care, guys. Appreciate